Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154. Today we are following Stacktick of the Kiddies at War in the Tier 7 Premium German Tank Destroyer E25. Now this is a tank that we reviewed in a fair bit of detail a couple of months ago, so do check out that other video and that'll be covering the technical characteristics of this vehicle in a hell of a lot more detail. But in terms of what you need to know, this is a vehicle that its performance is rather unlikely in that you have the lowest alpha of a premium Tier 7 tank destroyer, you have the lowest penetration of a premium Tier 7 tank destroyer, but also the highest damage per minute. The standout characteristic of E25 is the way that it retains its concealment bonus after firing. And I guess that's the key to this vehicle, being able to start firing and keep firing and not be seen, and hopefully keep your DPM up in the process. Otherwise, you can act as quite an effective active or passive scout. But clearly the enemy have had a couple of active scouts of their own, as S51 claims first blood. Meanwhile, as Stacktick is able to spot a couple of enemy vehicles making the cross on the low ground, he's starting to open up and actually claim some self-spotted damage. Now this party might come to a bit of a close here. He's got the SU-122-44 that's made it up the hill. Now he's being able to fire at their lower plate through cover at the moment, so hopefully he can stay hidden. No, he's not, and he cops some damage on the gun as a result. A quick repair will get him back into action, but fortunately he's got a T25 on 2 on Overwatch, and the T25 on 2 is able to knock out the Tier 7 Premium Soviet Tank Destroyer. Stacktick's team is making it up the hill in the meantime at the IS heavy tank, bearing the brunt of enemy fire, shut down by enemies undetected. IKV-90B also being the target of artillery, with particularly nasty hit sending it back to the garage for S51's second kill of the game. Persistent vision in the low ground has made it very difficult for enemy vehicles to cross, particularly the Super Hellcat, with combined fires from Stacktick and his platoon mate Maori Goat ending its tour of duty with a blind kill by Maori Goat. So it would appear at this point that they do have a fair bit of vision control here. Stacktick can spot whatever's in the low ground, but we also have to be aware that the enemy still has two light tanks in the field, and both of them, their last sighted position was on Stacktick's side of the map. The enemy EBR Hotchkiss, for example, on the lower side of the cliff, may well be able to spot Stacktick, if not directly, but at least through proximity spotting, driving within 50 meters. Now, although spotting assist potential to the enemy heavy tanks crossing in the low ground have not borne any fruit in particular, Stacktick still has vision all the way to the other side of the map, and now he's starting to pick up that spotting assist on the enemy SU-100M1. That's a vehicle that could present a credible threat to the team's efforts in advancing through the western side of the map. The enemy IS has decided to advance, however, and as Stacktick switches load to the APCR, trying to get that confidence of a penetration, it's ultimately crossfire from their own SU-122-44 that knocks it out. Efforts to push up and get eyeballed over the lower end of the map are met with enemy eyeballs in turn, and as T20 starts to bear the brunt of incoming enemy fire, Maori Goat and the Super Hellcat is also starting to take that signature consistent impact of an AMX 1357, so we have to assume that they are in play, but T20 is ultimately shut down by the enemy Steyr Waffenträger, and that's probably dampened any ambitions of Stacktick's team to be able to use the lower right corner of the map as a bit of a launching pad, but they've at least denied the enemy the ability to use that area of the map to launch an assault on their cap in turn. So I guess it all works out. The enemy EBR Hotchkiss in the meantime has made its appearance, putting a hit into AMX 1375 and following up for the kill. Now it does seem to be taking a bit of damage in the process, but manages to find some hard cover in time, and that's going to leave two enemy light tanks for just one on Stacktick's team. Now granted, E25 can and has effectively counted as a light tank so far this game, but in terms of vehicle class, it's only Stacktick's platoon mate RT-1028. In the WZ-131, there's the last strictly light tank. Harassment of the low ground continues, but the SU-100M1 has been respotted, but despite loading the good stuff for 194mm of penetration, we're still not biting the Tier 7 Soviet tank destroyer. The enemy does have the two-gun advantage on this map, and they are certainly not giving up their offensive capability. We see EBR Hotchkiss is probing the northeast corner of the map. VK-38-2D also pushing up the mountain trail towards Stacktick. And we can see that Stacktick's ability to retain at least the majority of their concealment rating after firing is serving them quite well. The enemy T-25-2, on the other hand, becoming exposed and miscalculating the cliff edge and giving us an important lesson in why we shouldn't tank and drunk. The enemy LTG has also played its hand. It's tried to get vision into the north side low ground, but ultimately it's spotted in turn and knocked out by IS-2M. EBR Hotchkiss has had a little bit more success, allowing to direct artillery fires from S-51 to knock out the T-25-2. Now, it has relied on proximity spotting in order to do this, and so Stacktick's platoon mate, T-1028, in the WZ-131 has been able to take advantage and knock those eyes out of the game. The standoff continues in the south, with neither side really being able to take advantage here. The enemy VK-3001D has been spotted. It just doesn't have enough hit points to mount an effective offensive. Stacktick's platoon mate, Maori Goat in Super Hellcat, also one-shottable after a withering assault by AMX 1357. Now, we have noticed there is a bit of a rotation developing with IS-2M and T-29 both heading up the hill, and they can probably do that a little bit more confidently now that there are no enemy light tanks other than the AMX 1357 that are left in the game. And it would appear that Stacktick is electing to join them, thus maximising the punching power of this advance. And this could be achieved by just creating some situational numerical advantages. So, for example, if those three vehicles can get up there and deal with one enemy vehicle, particularly with flanking fire and a better chance of penetration into weaker side armor or something like that, they can knock an enemy gun out of the game for minimal loss of hit points in exchange. And if you can start to do this with multiple vehicles that have been separated along the front, well then you can really start to eat away at the overall number of enemy vehicles remaining on the enemy side. That can be really bad news for an enemy team that's not pressing its own advantages elsewhere. And that's certainly not for lack of trying in the case of this enemy team. We can see they have started to push up really close to the underside of the cliff below Super Hellcat, such that Super Hellcat has been spotted and shut down by artillery for S-51's third kill of this game, the enemy arty having a party. The assault squad is now at the top of the Western Hill and getting ready to move in on the enemy team. We can see the IS-2M is already engaged in combat with the enemy IS, with the 122mm main gun singing at about 400 hit points its shot. T-29 is also getting in on the action, while Stacktick goes around to try to capture the high ground. And as they are just generally getting into position to mount this offensive, we can see the enemy VK-3002D has relocated, but they've been spotted and picked up by RT-1028, who finishes it off after a slapping by artillery. And the advance is on top side, with IS-2M leading the charge against the enemy IS, with the more modern of the Tier 7 Soviet heavy tanks coming out on top. The charge is joined by T-29 moving up on the enemy Tiger P. Stacktick, from his position of elevation, is now trying to leverage the accuracy of E-25's 75mm main armament and is managing to consistently hit the cupola, but T-29 comes in for the flanking shot and continues the push. We have a Su-100 M1 downrange, but artillery is on the ball, sending the shell in for the kill. So that's 3 unanswered kills that have resulted from this offensive, but the enemy team is certainly not going down without a fight. They have 2 SPGs and they are still out for blood, with the IS-2M copping a nasty hit there. The enemy team is also still committing its light tanks, with AMX 1357 attempting to dig WZ-131 out, and while the light tank has gone down, the enemy AMX M445 manages to knock out Stacktick's final platoon mate. And the assault on the enemy rearguard is underway. This can be an incredibly difficult position to assault on either side, quite frankly, due to the abundance of soft cover. It's just the S-51 that's been spotted, but there's clearly a tank destroyer and another SPG in the mix there that's blown T-29 up, but Stacktick is charging in. He wipes out S-51 by ammo rack, follows up on M12, and a vicious ram into the side of Steyr Waffenträger is just plugging away there, shot by shot, and just dismantles it. That is 3 kills in rapid succession here. It is just the enemy AMX M445 left in the game, which last we saw it was actually braving the top of the hill after the Super Hellcat had been knocked out. It was the cause of the demise of RT-1028. That was Stacktick's ill-fated platoon mate, but it's decided to blind fire this bush that Stacktick was in. They've missed the shot and revealed their position, so Stacktick is now able to follow up, leveraging the damage per minute of E25 to just dismantle it. Now, he's into blind firing of the bush, but that's okay. He has been able to knock it out for their 4th and final kill of this game. So there is a win. Let's take a look at the results. So well-deserved Ace Mastery badge for Stacktick of the Kiddies at War clan in that premium tier 7 German tank destroyer E25. This means that they have placed by the top 1% of experience points earners in this vehicle for the preceding week. And there is an absolute fistful of epic and battle heroes medals here. We've got Pascucci's medal for destroying 2 enemy SPGs in the one battle in that absolutely brutal shutdown at the end of the game. They picked up the Scout medal, which is where they've detected the most enemy vehicles out of anyone else on the team. It has to be at least 9. In this case, Stacktick was singly responsible for detecting 12 different enemy vehicles. They've also yielded the Patrol Duty medal because spotting all these enemy vehicles has enabled the team to damage at least 6 of them. Importantly, this damage must also only be inflicted by vehicles that only you have spotted, so you can't be doing sharesies with a teammate. He's also picked up the Confederate medal for hitting more enemy vehicles than anyone else on the team. And what we can see here is that there are 9 different enemy vehicles that he's caused damage to in the course of this game. But significantly, those vehicles must then be destroyed by another player, which is often a medal that is indicative of laying down effective crossfire and supporting fire. He's also picked up the High Caliber medal for accounting for at least 20% of the total hit point pool of enemy vehicles. In this case, has inflicted over 2,900 hit points worth of damage to enemy vehicles. But I think the key takeaway here, though, is that in combination with the spotting damage, over 2,600 hit points of spotting damage on the enemy team. This effort has earned them the Spotter medal, with, I guess, a fair bit of interest as well. They've also picked up the Bruiser medal for causing damage to enemy vehicle modules or crew members at least 5 times in the course of the battle, and the Demolition Expert for destroying at least 1 enemy vehicle by ammo rack detonation. In particular, that would have been the S51. They've also picked up the Fighter medal for accounting for at least 4 enemy vehicles, and finally the Fire for Effect medal for doing at least the hit points and damage, which, when you've already got the High Caliber medal, well, that one feels a little bit underwhelming. Having a look to the team scores, they have placed top on experience by a significant margin, nearly double the next punter. Of course, the T25-2 had been able to pick up a significant amount of damage. The only difference between this experience points score is that a lot of the damage inflicted was damage that they had inflicted by spotting themselves, whereas T25-2 was reliant on others spotting for them and doing the damage over distance. Looking to the enemy team, the stars of the show are the enemy artillery pieces M12 and S51, and it must be said their efforts of coordinating fire were quite admirable. We often saw with that arty shell chase cam, it was often 2 shells that were bearing down upon Stacktick's team, so very well done to those artillery pieces, particularly S51, who claimed 4 kills in that game. Having a look to the detailed report, this turned into quite a profitable game here with nearly 110,000 credits, although there was battle payments involved there, so let's wind that back. It's an 85,000 credit game. Attributing to this would be a resistance to dive into the premium ammunition too much. We did see reliance on the overwhelming utility of the standard ammunition, which the fact that he achieved that sort of result is quite admirable, given that you only get 150 millimeters of penetration with the standard stuff, but that had really contributed to quite a profitable result here. So very well played there by Stacktick of the Kittens at War clan. In the meantime, we have covered the technical characteristics of E25 in another video, so I will link this in the, I guess, the pop-ups at the end of this video. Of course, we are continuing to review community-submitted replays on our Twitch channel every Saturday. We did have a little bit of a snafu with a surprise micro patch, which rendered a couple of those unplayable, but we now have that older client version all installed and ready to go. So if you'd like to see one of your replays featured on World of Tanks with PR154, then jump on our Discord and head to the submission platform. The links are in the description below. In the meantime, happy tanking and take care out there.